Hello, this is Amy Cook with the Medical Liaison team at the Walton Library. In earlier videos we took a look at altmetrics as opposed to more traditional metrics, and why and how these might be important to help you track your online outputs and help to promote your online profile as a researcher. You'll have also heard from an FMC Simon talking about both discoverability via your online presence, your online accounts, and also how to make the most of those accounts and reach the audiences that you really want to connect with. I'm back to finish the three-parter today with a few tips and tricks and recommendations really for keeping your online research profiles up to date and secure and accurate. So the next few steps are going to involve identifying and making the most of your personal research profiles, and that's going to involve setting up an ORCID account. It's going to involve setting up personalised accounts and stored areas on some of the bigger databases, particularly Scopus, but perhaps Web of Science, those kinds of platforms. And then lastly, it's going to involve updating, tidying and maintaining your author profile or researcher ID so that you can close the loop and import all of the information about your outputs into ORCID. So first of all, why ORCID? Or perhaps you might be thinking, what is ORCID? What does it mean and what is it? If you haven't heard of it before, if it's a new term to you, ORCID stands for Open Researcher and Contributor ID. So it's a unique number that applies to you as an individual researcher. And being librarians and liking to quantify things in that kind of way, we like to refer to it as a DOI, a Digital Object Identifier, for human beings. So you'll see that published papers have DOIs, they're unique numbers. You too can have one as well. And it's a bit like a research passport. So it will follow you throughout your research career. It will travel with you if you move to different institutions or different geographical territories. And importantly, it helps make your work more discoverable. So particularly if you have, say, a very common name, something along the lines of John Smith, and perhaps there are 5 or 6 other John Smiths who also publish in epidemiology, this is a way to make your work distinct and more discoverable. And differentiates it from other John Smith's publications. Another reason that it might be very important to you is if at any point in the future or in the past you have changed your name for whatever reason. Again, this helps to link your work to you regardless of which name you were using at the time. And if you've found in the past that different publications in different journals have expressed your name in different ways, perhaps using different initials or full versions of your name, including or excluding a middle name, again, this just disambiguates all of those different variations and makes it very clear that all of this work is yours and it's on your research passport. And if we take a look at the perspective of the stick rather than the carrot, it's also increasingly being required for funders and required for reporting on funds used. And there are rumours milling around that it may in fact become a requirement for the next ref round. So very wise to get on top of it at this early stage and make sure you know what it is and why it's useful for you. Fortunately, an ORCID profile is very straightforward to set up. It just involves a little bit of tidying and housekeeping. If you are new to research and you perhaps only have 1 or 2 publications to your name so far, you could even go ahead and do this manually because that doesn't involve an awful lot of effort on your part. Conversely, if you do have a longer list of publications and manually adding them seems like a bit of a laborious task, you have the option of setting up or claiming your research profiles from popular databases and then importing the details from there. And that's what we're focusing on in these next couple of steps. So 3 steps in order to do that. First of all, make sure that you sign up for platform accounts, and I'll make it clear what that means in just a second. You then need to go through the process of tidying up or creating your profiles, depending on the platform that we're discussing. And then lastly, you claim your ORCID account and make sure that it's populated. And of course, the ever golden rule, make sure that you keep it up to date in future. So that very first step is to set up personalised individual database accounts, and the example I've given here is Scopus, but if there were another database that works better for you, or that indices more of your work, then that might be more appropriate, but I've gone with Scopus as one of the more obvious examples. And what I mean by personalised account is a personalised area that you subscribe to within the database to create your own individual account. And I'm stressing this because I'm trying to make it very clear that it's not simply using your single sign-on to get access institutionally to these databases. It's another step beyond that that requires you to add usually your university email address and then set up a personalised password. And this might seem like a very basic step, a very basic piece of advice, but it's very important for the next step because it's impossible to go ahead and tidy up research profiles unless you have this account. And it's good advice generally. It's something that librarians will advise you to do regardless because it is very useful for setting up search alerts, setting up feeds. If you're looking at doing systematic reviewing at any time in the future, it's really important to be able to save those more complex searches. So good practice anyway to set up these accounts, but it is in fact crucial for the next step. Now you will know that you have a personalised account and that you have logged in correctly when you see your own name appearing on the screen. And I have in fact gone to the native platform here because there has been an interface update since I added that screenshot, so you can see the layout looks slightly different, but I have my initials at the top right of the screen, and you can see that I have the option to go into a personalised area. So that's quite simply what I mean by personalised accounts in these different platforms. Once you've done that, the next step is to create and/or tidy your research profile. Now again, this does vary depending on the platform. So for example, Web of Science that I've mentioned on the bottom of the slide here, you can create your own researcher profile using something called the Researcher ID function. So you simply look up yourself as an author and then claim the Researcher ID. But the platform that we'll be focusing on for this is Scopus. Now in Scopus you cannot create your own Researcher ID. The profiles are auto-generated. So as long as an author has at least one publication that has been indexed in Scopus, then their profile will be automatically generated for them. And your job is to go ahead and search for yourself as an author. And from there, you can go ahead and request changes. So whether that's changes to the appearance of your name, spellings of your name, if there are papers missing from your profile, or perhaps if somebody with a similar name has a paper that has been erroneously added to your profile, then you can ask for that to be removed. But unless you have an account set up within the database already, you can't go ahead and complete this additional step of asking for corrections. So let's see what it looks like in the database. So to find your researcher profile in Scopus, you'll want to go to the author search, and you might notice here incidentally that there is a field for ORCID ID, so if you know that somebody already has one, or you're looking to look up yourself and you've already created your ID, then you can go ahead and put the number sequence into this field. But what we're doing is we are searching for yourself as an author so that you can identify your profile. So in this example, I'm going to look for somebody who I know already is very prolific with their publications. So we've identified Stephen Hawking, and I'm going to open up his record. And you can see incidentally already the many different variations of expressions of his initials and first names. So here we have Professor Hawkins' profile, author profile within Scopus. You can see all of his metrics here. And you can also see, most importantly, the option to connect to an ORCID account if you've set one up, and also the option to edit the author profile. Now, of course, I won't be going ahead and doing this, but had you found yourself and you had amendments to make, additional papers to add, papers to remove, or details to change, such as your institution, your affiliated institution, or any other such details, this is where you would go ahead and do it. So you request to make the change, and the team at Scopus will examine the request. They will check out your email address, so hence why it's so important to have a registered account to start with, and they will contact you if there are any doubts or any details to clarify. But once you've identified that research profile, it's a very simple process to go ahead and make those changes. And then lastly, once you've been through that housekeeping and that tidying and you're happy with the accuracy and the detail that's in your researcher profile, the final step is to go ahead and claim your ORCID account from orcid.org. Very straightforward to do that. Once you're on the website, you'll be guided through the process of setting up your account if you don't have one already. So again, very straightforward to register. But once you do have an account, you can see that you're prompted for all the details that build up your research portfolio, including the option to add works to your profile. And this is where all of that hard work in creating your research profiles on the other platforms and tidying them up and making the most of them comes into force, because you are able to simply link the two together and pull all of the information about your outputs into your ORCID ID, into your account. Now, the one thing to note here is that you must go back in and repopulate your account when you publish new papers. So it's not auto-harvest, unfortunately. So all that means is that you need to add this to your workflow going forward to make sure that new papers are added to your account. So that's it, really, in 3 simple steps. You've got your ORCID ID up and running. You can use that for reporting purposes and for making your work even more discoverable. A few bits of information or a few tips to help you make the most of it. Do make sure that you are correcting and updating your profiles when and wherever possible. Create that regular workflow so that you're remembering to go back in and add new publications. You can, if you wish, add a trusted individual, so perhaps a research secretary or somebody else in your office, to help administer your account if there's a job for somebody else to do there. So a few tips for making the most of your ORCID ID going forward. So do include both the DOI, that digital object identifier, on your paper, and your ORCID ID when you're publicising a new article. If you're permitted by your publisher, do go ahead and add the article or the details of it to sites similar to ResearchGate, so making the most of your profile and making your work more discoverable. Attach your ORCID ID to all of your publications. Again, think of it as a crucial piece of information about you as an author, like a passport number. And try and keep in touch with former co-authors so that they're aware that you have that ID and so that you can share information going forward. So, in conclusion, those are your simple steps to making the most of your research profiles online and making your work as discoverable and accessible as possible.